Welcome to the December episode of Celebrate Meridian, our monthly look at all things Meridian. Tonight I will be joined by John Reusser. He is with the Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline, which after a lot of hard work is up and running once again. Earlier this month, Meridian ushered in the holiday season with a series of gatherings which over the years have become a part of the fabric of our community. These include the tree lighting celebration in Generations Plaza, our annual outdoor showing of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and the Children's Winterland Festival at City Hall. Indeed, while the Christmas season is a joyous time for most, there are those who do not look forward to this time of year because of the many hardships it can bring. It is these, our friends and neighbors, with whom we should share our care and give generously to organizations and programs that provide relief during the holidays. Let me share a few opportunities where you may be able to help this holiday season. First, thank you to those who donated food to the Meridian Food Bank as they attended the Children's Winterland Festival. The Meridian Food Bank continues to see great demand for food donations. We know there is always a need, but being able to enjoy a traditional meal during the holiday with family and friends could be just the trick to get people through the holidays. Then there is the Meridian Kiwanis Hope Tree Project, which holds a special place in my heart. They are providing more than 3,000 gifts and clothing items to more than 400 children of local families in need. The Meridian Parks and Recreation Department's second annual Holiday Classic Volleyball Tournament will be held to help raise funds for the Kiwanis Hope Tree. Held on Saturday, December 8th at Heritage Middle School, this is a great way for many in the community to make a donation to the Hope Tree. You may have noticed during the Christmas tree lighting celebration that the U.S. Marines collect new and unwrapped toys as part of their Toys for Tots. Another donation location is at Kathy Chambers State Farm Santa Party that will be held on December 8th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 3015 West McMillan Road. This free event is open to all Meridian families and will feature music by local school children, milk and cookies, and special visits from Nutcracker characters, a live reindeer, and of course, Santa. I also wanted to share information about the Self-Rescue Manual, a manual designed for people who want to help themselves during the holidays and all year long. This manual has valuable information on where to find discounted clothing and furniture, medical services, shelters and showers, and hot meals. The Self-Rescue Manual is an extremely valuable resource for those in our community who want a hand up, not necessarily a handout. Thank you to those that helped put this together. It can be found at www.selfrescuemanual.com. As we move into this most wonderful time of the year, let us celebrate this season together as one big community family, helping our neighbors in the true spirit and meaning of this time of year. By giving back and sharing hope, this holiday season will be filled with joy for all. This month, I'm happy to profile a student leader who is committed to giving back to the community and leaving a legacy for others. Join me as we celebrate Dakota Sill, our Meridian Feature Leader of the Month.
Dakota Seal is a driven, active, intelligent student dedicated to his academics and achieving his dreams.
I find academics pretty important. I try to always keep my grades up, try to keep straight A's, don't go below the C average and stuff, just study for tests and things like that. So after high school, I'm planning on going to college. I'm not exactly sure what college, but I want to major in medicine and just try to become a doctor or something like that, and probably minor in graphic design.
Dakota is using his strong leadership skills to help benefit the community through the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council.
What makes me a leader is probably just when a situation comes up, I try to take a hold of it and, just figure out what to do and how to get it done. And I try to take charge of that, and people usually tend to follow. So I guess that's one of the qualities that makes me a leader. I'm the historian for MIAC. My job is to kind of document everything, take pictures of events that we're having, try to communicate to the community in a way, maybe get it in the newspaper or a small commercial or something, just try to also get it out, that way people know what's going on and things like that.
Dakota Seal, your Meridian Student Leader of the Month.
Welcome back. Tonight I'm joined by John Roycer, Director of the newly reinstated Suicide Prevention Hotline here in Idaho. John is working hard to get this important suicide prevention tool up and running. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Tammy.
Well, it's great having you here. Maybe you can start us off by first telling us a little bit about yourself and what your background is.
Okay. I was born and raised here in Idaho. I moved to Seattle in the late 80s and became involved in volunteerism there. I became a volunteer at the King County Crisis Line. And then as I went back to school and got my bachelor's and then my master's degree, I went from being a volunteer to a paid phone worker and then a supervisor there at the King County Crisis Clinic. So I got some experience with kind of all the levels of the operations there, training and volunteer recognition and things like that. Moved back to Boise 9 years ago to be with my family. I've been working in the mental health system locally with the Region 4 Mobile Crisis Unit and the St. Alphonsus Emergency Department. And so that's kind of my background with mental health and crisis intervention.
Oh, great. Thank you for what you do. Why do you think it's important to have a local Idaho hotline when a national hotline for suicide prevention does exist?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, and that's a question that I've gotten a lot over the past months with the launching of the hotline. And when people call a national line, like right now, if you were to call 1-800-273-TALK, the lifeline and the number that will route you to the Idaho hotline, you'll get somebody in another state, and they'll be a trained phone worker, but they won't understand. I don't think they'll have the same grasp of the issues that are particular to Idaho. We're a rural state. People are somewhat geographically isolated here. It's a different sort of place. So that's one advantage to a local hotline. The other advantage is that we will have a database that is all of the resources from our Idaho 211 Care Line database and about 1,200 additional resources that the Suicide Prevention Action Network, or SPAN Idaho, has generously They've gathered them painstakingly and loaded them into our database. So our phone worker is going to have the most current and up-to-date and relevant list of resources to help callers specifically from Idaho.
Well, and that is very important. Now, Idaho has been without a suicide prevention hotline for 5 years. Can you tell us maybe what the impetus was to bring it back, and what kind of work has been undertaken to bring this as a reality?
Well, the prior suicide hotline folded. The Governor's Council on Suicide Prevention took up the issue pretty close to the time the prior hotline folded. They saw the problem of suicide in Idaho as being very significant, and the lack of a hotline being a pretty big gap in our addressing that. We are the only state in America without a nationally certified statewide suicide hotline. And so the Governor's Council on Suicide Prevention started working on what it would take to launch a new hotline. They had a lot of help from the Idaho State University Institute on Rural Health, and in 2010 a study was put out exploring options for launching a new hotline, and one of the parts of that was to employ Mountain States Group, which is the local agency that helps nonprofits launch and operate. They tasked them with founding the hotline, and a technical work group was formed over a year ago, and so they've kind of put together this idea of a hotline sort of brick by brick from, from funding to policy to implementation, down to a lot of very close details. And that's what they handed off to me when I was hired back in late June.
Well, a lot of people have really put their name and influence behind this, and so it's very admirable what has been done to get this up and running.
Certainly.
Certainly, Idaho has an alarming rate of suicides. Last month, in just 1 week, we had 3, and I think it really rocked our community when we lost a middle school student. Can you tell us how many suicides occur in Idaho each year?
Yeah, well, statistically, Idaho hovers between 4th and 6th in the nation for rate of suicides. The information that I have is from SPAN Idaho. They generate annual reports on suicide in Idaho, and for 2011, 284 people completed suicide in Idaho, and that was a slight increase from 2010.
And so why do you think that we see more suicides in Idaho versus other parts in the United States?
That is an excellent question. I mentioned, we're a rural state. People are geographically isolated. There are a lot of communities around the state where people don't have immediate access to affordable and effective mental health treatment. We also lag somewhat behind in our funding for mental health services. I believe we're 48th or 49th in the nation in terms of funding mental health treatment. And so I think those things kind of working together increase our suicide rate compared to the rest of the country.
Now, some people think because of some of the recent wars that we have had and the veterans returning, there's a recognition that veterans are more prone to suicide. What are some of the resources that we have, and how are they dealt with differently than others?
Well, returning veterans definitely have a special set of circumstances and challenges and risk factors for suicide. A lot of them have been exposed to traumatic events, and post-traumatic stress disorder has a strong positive correlation with self-harm. Returning veterans have been in a culture that's very much tough and self-sufficient, and returning to civilian life, there are significant adjustments to be made. I think that it can be more difficult for someone in that situation to ask for help. Fortunately, both the federal and state government seem to have stepped up with their services for veterans. The VA, the VAs around the state are excellent resources for them. The suicide prevention hotline, the 1-800-273-TALK number, actually has an option, a menu option to select for a caller to go to a national veterans helpline as well if they're wanting to talk to somebody, specifically about veterans issues. But there's a lot of good things there for them. Our crisis line workers, our trained phone workers, have some special extra training for veterans issues. We had Mary Pierce, who's the head of suicide prevention for the Boise VA, come out and give our volunteers a special hour of training on issues specific to veterans. Then we had Penelope Hansen from the Idaho National Guard kind of work in tandem with her on that training, so that our phone workers have a little more information than probably the general public about what's going on with veterans and how to help them.
And what the resources are.
Yes.
Certainly, December is a difficult month for some, and it puts some people at risk. What are some of the signs that people should be looking for, or what are some of the signs?
Well, some of the classic warning signs are if someone is, vocalizing thoughts about harming themselves, thoughts about harming others, speaking of ending it all, hopelessness, feeling like they have no sense of belonging. Behavioral indicators would be things like ending behaviors, giving away belongings, saying goodbye to people in your life, alteration in sleep patterns, sleeping more than usual or especially less than usual. There's some change in someone's use of alcohol or perhaps controlled substances. Those are all things that a concerned person would want to look for in their loved ones as signs of suicide. I think it's important to keep in mind that while all of those things could be signs of risk for suicide, they also might not be. And so it's important to have a dialogue with that person and ask them directly if they're having thoughts of harming themselves. I think there's a common misconception, Mayor Tammy, that by asking someone if they're suicidal, you will somehow plant the idea in their mind for suicide, and that's proven to not be the case. It's much better to just ask.
Ask directly.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other steps that someone can take if they see some of these warning signs? If their friend has said, yeah, I'm considering this, what can someone do?
Well, if you have somebody in your life that is considering suicide, the first thing to do would be to ask them more questions about it. Do they have a specific plan? And do they have a specific timeline to implement that plan? Do they have access to the means for that plan? And I would first of all urge them to go to follow up with their support system, their medical provider, go to the nearest emergency department, and also to call the suicide prevention hotline. And if a person is not willing to get help, I would encourage any concerned loved one to call the suicide prevention hotline or call if they have a local mental health provider and let them know what's going on.
Well, certainly we have told our teams that if someone tells them that, we would want them to tell an adult who could perhaps help them think of something that can be done. But as a community, what can we do to prevent suicide?
We can talk about it. We can increase awareness of mental health issues, of the risk for suicide, that anybody is potentially at risk for suicide. There's no one sort of profile to look for. And so it's important to be aware of what's going on with the people around you and to reduce the stigma of talking about suicide and talking about mental health issues.
Well, it's indeed an uncomfortable conversation. I think that people dread the potential of it. But maybe you can tell us what are the hours of your operation? How many calls that do you anticipate, or what are you expecting?
Well, first of all, I want to emphasize that if someone calls 1-800-273-8255 or 1-800-273-TALK, that their call will be answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we are part of what's called the Lifeline Network of crisis centers nationwide. And so no matter what the operating hours are of any one center, the network itself will handle those calls. So having said that, the Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline, the initial hours of operation are Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and in February, when we train our second cohort of volunteers, we'll have staffing resources to be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. In our second year, we will increase our hours incrementally up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So you're newly up and running. What are some of your current needs?
Boy, we are looking for volunteers for our next training cohort. We are looking for funding, to expand our hours and pay for our operational budget as well. And as we solidify operations, we'll have some more ideas about other volunteer opportunities for interested people, kind of above and beyond being trained phone workers. In terms of call volume, currently the Lifeline Network is taking about 15 calls a day originating in Idaho. But as we market the hotline and get the word out there, we expect that volume to increase.
That's so unfortunate, and certainly we'd like to see how we can all work together to minimize the number instead of
Yeah.
seeing them increase. But certainly we want to accommodate those calls for help to see how we can avoid it.
Yeah, we want to be, prevention is in our name, and we want people to call, if they're in any sort of crisis.
Now, who should they call if they're interested in volunteering, giving in-kind or monetary help for this hotline?
If they're interested in volunteering, they would want to contact our volunteer coordinator, Sydney Young, and her number is 789-3262, and I do have her permission to give that out on television. They can also go to either the Mountain States Group website or IdahoSuicidePrevention.org, our new website. We also have a very active and popular Facebook page as well. People can contact Sydney through any of those venues.
Well, that's great. And I know that certainly we have a group of very passionate young people with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council here in Meridian that have taken this as their topic, their issue for this year, and they are passionately behind you in promoting this, in promoting the warning signs and all of that. Is there any final words that you want to leave our viewers on this topic and the need for involvement?
Yeah, another statistic about suicide in Idaho, Mayor Tammy, is that the estimated cost of attempts overall is $36 million a year. That's for medical care, for everything. And the budget of the hotline is less than 1% of that per year. And so it's a very cost-effective way of intervening with this incredible social problem that we have of suicide. And I would urge anybody to call the hotline and talk to a trained phone worker. If you're having thoughts of harming yourself, if anybody that you love or care about or know is having thoughts of harming themselves, and don't hesitate to use that service.
Well, John, we certainly appreciate you being here with us tonight, and you have a vital mission. It's sorely needed, and we appreciate your service to our community and to this state.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you. Up next is our Economic Development Administrator, Brenda Sherwood, giving us an update on business in Meridian.
Hi, I'm Brenda Sherwood, Economic Development Administrator for the City of Meridian. This past month, we celebrated Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday is a nationwide holiday to celebrate our small businesses. They really are truly the backbone of our local economy. So, we've decided here at Meridian, throughout the next month, during the holiday season, we would love for you to celebrate each Saturday and support our local businesses. Also, we have our downtown construction that's currently in place, and we'd like to encourage you to keep coming downtown. There's some great stores, like Priest's Chocolates has a brand new line of chocolates. In addition, if you haven't been to Tammy's Cottage for tea, I suggest you go over there and find the variety of unique gifts that she has. But we would like to, every Saturday, support all of our local businesses and support the small businesses. Thank you for joining us. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next month for our Business Minute.
Thanks, Brenda, for that update. And now I get to answer a question from the community as part of our Ask the Mayor.
Mayor, what can we do to give back to the community this holiday season?
This is a special time of year, and opportunities to serve are everywhere we turn. While I mentioned many organizations in the opening that need help during the holidays, such as the Meridian Food Bank, the Kiwanis Hope Tree, and the U.S. Marines Toys for Tots programs, there are many other ways to serve others if you just look around where you are. By this I mean observing our friends and neighbors and assessing their needs. Perhaps you have a neighbor who needs some help. But that may not be willing to ask for it, or maybe you know a family who is struggling to whom you can lend a helping hand. This is the greatest way to help our community, by helping our neighbors. We are a community that cares, and this is one of the many reasons I love living in Meridian. I am confident that either individually or by working together, our community's needs can be met. Take a moment to look around and see where our time and talents can best be served. Well, that's our show this holiday season. Know that we can all make a positive difference in the lives of others. We can volunteer our time and talents, give to those in need, and reach out to those around us who may need a helping hand. We can also do this knowing that we have people like our guest tonight, John Roycer, who are helping behind the scenes to bring needed resources, especially during the holidays, to our community. A special thank you to John for joining me tonight, and for everyone who is making the Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline a reality. In addition, as we wrap up 2012, I'd like to thank the talented students of Mountain View High School and their advisor, Mike Gardner, who works tirelessly to make this show a success. You can catch this program every Thursday at 8 p.m. on TVC TV Channel 11 or anytime on the City of Meridian website. Thanks for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you here next month where, together, we will find new and exciting ways to celebrate Meridian.